Good afternoon. It's 1:30 Pacific time, and this is another of my series called Guy in a Garage Talking About a Movie. Let me give you some of the background on this. And I told you that the idea was spurred by a conversation with my friend Greg Dodder. What I didn't tell you was why the setup I have here. Well, I had been thinking about doing something once the weather got nicer, and it looks like it's going to get into the 70s by the end of the week, upper 70s. And I have this TV, and we haven't had to use it since I moved here. Backstory of the TV, as I mentioned yesterday on the program, one of the movies that I was introduced to by somebody in my life was The Great Escape. And that was introduced to me by my uncle, Tom O'Hare. Well, Tom had come to visit when we were living in Jefferson City, Missouri. And clearly this was staged. But what he did was he came to the house with my dad, following my son, Ben, over my shoulder there, Ben's fifth grade advancement ceremony. So Ben advanced from fifth grade into middle school. They had a big ceremony for the fifth graders. And Ben still had to do some things at school. So I came back to the house to let my dad and Uncle Tom in. Tom comes inside, goes, "Oh, this isn't going to work. That's terrible." Looks at my TV. "Bernie, let's go for a ride." And I'm like, what the hell's going on here? So about a half hour later, those two show up. And now, by the way, just to explain my dad and Uncle Tom, Tom, my mom's brother, my dad being, of course, my dad, they were kind of like, if you've seen the movie Grumpy Old Men, yeah, they were great friends, but would never say that they were great friends. So anyhow, they went to Target, came back with this. Like, "Jay, get out of here. You're going to carry this in." Carry what in? This. So 11 years later, still have the TV. And as I'm getting ready to have a outdoor space to watch TV and movies around our fireplace, I want to make sure everything was working. So I fired up the Roku, the TV, and made sure it was working after having that conversation with Greg. So basically the conversation with Greg that led to this silly series of talking about movies came from the fact that I needed to get this ready to move outside. Now I will be getting a weather cover of some sort, and probably going to get a better stand than the table I just rebuilt to put it on so that it doesn't blow over in the wind. But anyhow, that's really how this all got started. It's a matter of I have the equipment, I have the place, and thanks to Greg, I now have the idea. So today, we're talking about a movie that does come from my lifetime. To call it a classic could be argumentative, but I think it's held true over the last 35 years. The movie's Real Genius, directed by Martha Coolidge. Now, what does this movie have? Well, you've got a cast including Val Kilmer and Gabriel Jarret. Not a huge name, but he did appear later in Apollo 13. William Atherton continues his series of movie roles where he plays, well, an asshole. Prior to this film, he was in Ghostbusters as Peck from the EP, world-class asshole. This movie is Dr. Jerry Hathaway. And then, of course, in 1988, he appears in Die Hard. Also, John Grease, a well-known character actor who I believe the year later appeared with Billy Crystal and Gregory Hines in the film Running Scared. Also in this film, two other things. Spoiler alert, 95 tons of popcorn. And not a cameo, a brief little glimpse at a later Academy Award winner. Let's go to there right now. So let's turn the aforementioned TV on. And early in the film, there is a scene that establishes Gabe Jarrett's character, Mitch Taylor, as a student at a college, Pacific Tech, which is obviously based on Caltech. So when he first arrives on campus, there's a mixer, and he gets to meet basically the leader of Pacific Tech. Pay careful attention to what's happening in the background. Oops. Little technical hiccup here. Let's try it again. The joys of going live. Had it all queued up. Now it's giving me issues. Well, the good news is I set it up. I should be able to fix it. Connection to your TV, try using a different HDMI cable. Well, clearly it's working. Well, let's try this one more time before I swap out the cable.
Thank you. I better be going.
Let's go back and see that one more time.
Okay. Thank you.
Look at who Mitch bumps into. Did he look familiar? For those who missed it, let's do it one more shot.
Thank you. I better be going. Sorry.
That right there, and if you don't believe me, check the IMDb trivia. That is Academy Award winner and COVID-19 survivor Tom Hanks. Yes, making a background appearance. And you can kind of hear him say something, but it's unintelligible. But yes, Tom Hanks appears in Real Genius. So maybe that moves it to the classic category. Now, continuing on, I want to show more of this scene, or the scene that it moves into as it transitions. So it shows Mitch basically walking back to his dorm room and getting an experience of a 15-year-old on a college campus. Clearly a fish out of water type situation. But wait, it continues. Notice how he's dressed a little different than the rest of the students. His side of the room, nice and neat. Haven't met his roommate yet, but a little different. And then John Grease shows up.
Hello?
So for those of you who hadn't seen the movie, John Grease plays, or labeled in here as Jonathan Grease, plays a character who was on the campus 10 years prior, has kind of a mental breakdown after he discovers some of his research, what it led to. All plays into the story. Also, a little foreshadowing at the very beginning as Carmen McRae song plays over a series of graphics. The song is You Took Advantage of Me. the graphics are a growing list of, well, weapons, from caveman using rocks and then hammers and spears to nuclear poof mushroom cloud. And that's what this is about. So as I say, it's not a military film per se. There are some military overtones. Excellently played in this movie by a great character actor. You probably don't know the name. You may know the name Ed Lauter. He's been in things such as The Longest Yard. Actually, both versions of The Longest Yard he appeared in. Different characters, obviously, different times. But he's one of those faces you'll recognize, even though you may not know the name. A lot of character actors in roles like that as well. Now, a lot of this movie came from the idea of setting up what is genius really about. And Martha Coolidge actually liked the idea of taking some incredibly smart people and showing that they're not incredibly always dull, that they need their outlets, and in some cases those outlets come out in the form of pranks. So you see some of that. I'm going to try and get to a couple of those later on. We can talk about them. Robert Prescott shows in this movie, probably an underappreciated actor who plays kind of the nemesis beyond William Atherton's Dr. Jerry Hathaway. He's a fellow student, Kent, who tortures poor young Mitch throughout the film. They get their revenge on him in a couple different ways later on in the film. Let's see here. I don't think I want to be at this point yet.
Rented out my room.
So here's a scene where Mitch is kind of having a breakdown. He decides to call home. Kent, as I mentioned, is torturing him. So as part of that, he decides to record his phone call with his parents.
I don't like it here anymore. I want to come home and live with you. You rented out my room? What to who?
So the next day, his roommate shows up to kind of try and cheer him up.
Where were you last night?
In the lab when you were supposed to be.
Yeah. Jordan said that Hathaway got down on you. What exactly did he, Let me hold on to that thought and get back.
Kent's torture? About now.
Mom, are you there?
Baby, you sound upset. What's wrong?
I don't like it here anymore. I want to come home and live with you.
It's not for you to like. It's for you to do. You're 15 years old now.
I want to come home and live with you.
You want to live with me, baby?
Yeah, Dad. I want to go back to high school.
Honey, Daddy's rented out your room.
My room, what to who?
You were in Mr. Barrett. He's the fun.
Why can't Mr. Kilmer and I share it? I don't want to stay here anymore.
Damn it. That doesn't sound like my little soldier.
Dad, it's your dad. My dad? Are you crying?
So you get the gist of it. 15-year-old on campus, hotshot, super intelligent, but not well acquainted. This is where some of the series of pranks go back and forth, including Kent's car getting parked in a place it, well, would probably get ticketed for, his dorm room. So again, the film continues on, and you see more of the back and forth until they accomplish the goal, which is to make this very powerful laser. They're students. They're on this research project for their trusted professor. Not only that the trusted professor has already has a plan for that laser, which is to become a weapon. Again, all that is foreshadowed in the very beginning of the film. You see what's going on, but you have to realize throughout the film, they don't know what's going on. None of them, not Mitch, not Chris, not even Kent, who is involved in this development of this weapon. It also makes a very interesting thought process, thinking about 1985, hot Cold War. You have President Reagan in the White House pushing a program called the Strategic Defense Initiative, which has been derided by his critics as Star Wars. A case of, people trying to score political points against each other. Back then, a weapon like they're trying to develop, which is a single shot laser to take out a single human target at any given point on the planet, sounds like something that would be inherently evil and wrong. And in 1985, it certainly was. But fast forward 16 years to 2001. If such a weapon existed, would the morality of 2001, 2002 be the same as 1985? Knowing that you had now something that you could use to take out a Saddam Hussein or Osama bin Laden. Again, morality may have changed over the years. I'm not saying it has, but I'm saying it is a point to consider. Now, later on in the film, as they get to the test firing, the Air Force tests it using a B-1B Lancer bomber, and they have it all targeted on a motorcade, a moving target. History buffs may note this motorcade has a familiar look to it. And it also helps feed conspiracy-minded people, because the Air Force is portrayed as having laid out this motorcade to look like the Kennedy assassination. I guess that enforces the lone gunman theory. Now, of course, as the story goes on, we learn that they figured out, with the help of Laszlo Holyfeld, the character played by John Grease, that they had already had a plan. So they go in and they figure out they're going to do something about it. So who do they target? They target their ever-popular professor, and decide that let's go back a step here, that he should be the one who bears the brunt of his own nefarious activities, so to speak, where he oh yeah, they get
well, I'm
Kent
not
back.
insane.
They planted something in his braces.
Remains to be seen, Kent.
But we are having a conversation.
They have him thinking he's going insane.
Okay, who is this?
This is Jesus, Kent.
And you've been a very...
Naughty boy.
So the setup there is they tell Kent that he needs to show up the next day at Dr. Hathaway's house, where the team has set up a reveal to not only Kent, but also a member of Congress who's on hand to witness the debut of the Operation Crossbow weapon. Don't need to see them loading it up. Let's just see the net result after they get everything arranged. They go to the Air Force Base again. Not a truly military film, but it has some military involvement in this. All right, trying to get to the part where I want to. Not having all the professional tools and just being a guy in a garage talking about a movie makes things a little bit more technically challenging. But I do enjoy the fact that folks are watching. By the way, your feedback, commentary is always welcome, and